Good morning. Have you ever wanted a Minotaur performer, a puppeteer, a master of the strings in the command zone? Well, me neither, but here we are. Now for me, Unfinity kinda came and went. The only card I was interested in was Saw in Half for the various shenanigans you can accomplish with that. Exchange of Words is a pretty sweet card for Commander as well. You can basically neuter two opposing commanders or do all kinds of fun stuff, get creative with it. So my buddy built Magar of the Hidden Strings. I guess that's how you say it, Magar, I don't know. And it seems like a commander that really bears closer scrutiny because it has a unique effect that makes for a really interesting commander deck. Ray built it creatureless as a sort of challenge, I guess. And we're going to go over that deck today in excruciating detail. But first, click the dang subscribe button, alright? You're going to be telling your pal Rodney about this video and he's going to say, oh yeah, cool man, where'd you see that? And you're going to be like, I don't know, I didn't subscribe. You know, you're going to look foolish. Your friend is probably never going to speak to you again. You're going to die from embarrassment. Alright, here we go. Magar of the Magic Strings. 1 black and a red for a legendary creature Minotaur performer. It's a 3/3. As 1 black and a red, note the name of target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. Put it onto the battlefield face down. It's a 3/3 creature with, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may create a copy of the card with the noted name. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. And if this creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Alright, listen, first things first, there's a bunch of rulings regarding this card because it does some weird things. Go read all the rulings if you want, but I'm going to read you one that's particularly relevant. You must ensure that your face down spells and permanents can easily be differentiated from each other. You're not allowed to mix up the cards that represent them on the battlefield to confuse other players, you dingus. The order they entered the battlefield should remain clear. Common methods for indicating this include using markers or dice, or a cat, you can put one of your cats on there, or simply placing them in the order on the battlefield. You must also track how each became face down, Magar's ability, cast face down using the morph ability, and so on. So listen, it's up to you to figure out how to do this. I mean, basically you can just tell somebody, alright, I'm exiling this, and this is the first thing, I'm exiling this is the second thing. And you know what? It adds a layer of complexity to the whole game because then somebody's got to write all this stuff down. It's up to you to figure out how to do this, but my buddy Ray just keeps them face up because, I mean, it's kind of public knowledge what they are anyway. It's not exactly on point with the rules, but I'm not sure what else makes sense here. I like that idea, just keep them face up. If Magar gets murked, by the way, but the copy creature is still on the battlefield, just remember Magar doesn't have to be out there for you to get your free copy when it connects with a player. It has that intrinsically, getting it with Magar's ability. Anyways, you can activate Magar's ability at instant speed. If you want to hold up mana and do this at your last opponent's end step, the copy creatures have a sort of pseudo haste. Also, Magar doesn't need to be untapped to do this, so you can bang in with him as an attacker or whatever and then activate his ability later. The cards you need for a deck like this, cheap looting cards, instants and sorceries, and borderline uncastable big instants and sorceries, are pretty cheap to buy in real life, so you can get this deck running pretty cheaply. And remember, you're casting the copies when the Magar creature connects, so there are some effects that care about that. I don't know what to call the copy creature, the copy of the instant sorcery that comes out onto the battlefield. I just call it the Magar creature. So you want to get key instants and sorceries in your graveyard, but how you gonna do it, dude? There's a few ways you can do this. The first is just to cast them and then they go to the graveyard anyway. Secondly, you can discard with looting effects like Faithless Looting and its Wish.com cousin Faithless Salvaging. You also have cards like Cathartic Reunion, Thrill of Possibility. There's a bunch of these cards in here that help to increase our card velocity. These cards can get bigger Haymakers into the graveyard for later pseudo reanimation with Magar. You can also tutor stuff to the graveyard. You can use a card like Entomb or Unmarked Grave. 1 in a black for a sorcery, search your library for a non-legendary card, put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle. I usually think of this card in relation to Reanimator targets, big creatures, you know, but it can target any non-legendary card. I hadn't noticed that before, to be honest. And next up we have Razaketh's Right. 3 black for a sorcery, search your library for a card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle. This is pretty bad, right, compared to Demonic Tutor. However, it has cycling for 1 black mana. It doesn't a tutor or a Haymaker to the graveyard, but it is a Haymaker that can just pitch itself and is thusly brilliant in this deck. Now Ray also included a copy spell sub-theme, and this is the perfect deck for Twinning Staff, which is 3 generic mana for an artifact. If you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time. You may choose new targets for the copy. Also has 7 in tap, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control, you may choose new targets for the copy. That second ability is a little expensive, but remember, for that 7 mana you're getting 2 copies, and that's a game-winning play late game, dude. I think there are a total of about 9 effects like this in the deck, but you have cards like Double Cast, Reverberate, Increasing Vengeance, Bonus Round, stuff like that. In this card, Howl of the Horde is 2 and a red for a sorcery. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. It has a raid. If you attack this turn, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell an additional time. You may choose new targets for the copy. You are going to be necessarily attacking with a creature to cast the copy, so this card copying a big old Haymaker twice can be really game breaking. This guy screams lightning, okay? You can't take him to soccer games. You can't take him to your Taylor Swift concerts, all right? Everybody gets electrocuted and dies. All right, so we want our creatures to make it through for damage. That's the only way to get our free spells. So you have Key to the City, 2 generic mana for an artifact, tap, discard a card, up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn. Whenever it becomes untapped, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. This is key, because it's a discard outlet and a way to make your creatures unblockable. Looks like Flavor Flav's house key, dude. Now this is kind of a dubious inclusion, but I think it's a neat card, and that's Intimidation. 2 black for an enchantment. Oh, black, I'm sorry. For an enchantment, creatures you control have fear. Twist their minds with fear, brother. I would suggest Thieves' Tools, maybe some of the other equipment that makes things hard to block, like Trailblazer's Boots over something like this, but, you know, whatever. And I don't think this is a bad idea to include some double strike enablers, like Berserker's Onslaught and Rage Reflection. These are good if the creature can get through, because you can get 2 triggers off of their triggered ability, and that's pretty nice, dude. Now you also want a fairly robust removal suite, because another way to clear out blockers is just straight removal. Terminate is old school cool, man. It's the gold standard. Just a great old card, simple too. You also have Hurl Through Hell, 2 black and a red for an instant. Exile target creature. Until the end of your next turn, you may cast that card. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. I don't know, man. I'm sure this angel looked way cooler after it tore through hell, buddy. So at the end of the day, we want some really big, impactful spells that we can be copying over and over and over again to win the game. So what do we want to be copying and casting again? Well, we got Sorin's Vengeance, 4 black for a sorcery. It deals 10 damage to target player or planeswalker. You gain 10 life. Sorin is the biggest jerk in Magic the Gathering. He's constantly doing vengeance on people, dude, just stabbing them. This kind of card seems kind of middling at first glance, but if you have a copy spell you can deploy, or indeed Twinning Staff out there, then this is suddenly a knockout blow. In a recent game, I saw this interaction and realized that was probably game. If we as a table did not deal with this thing, he was going to copy it 4 times, somebody dies, and then that's the end of that. That's the big problem when you're facing this deck. It can be incredibly explosive and you have to pick your targets. Army of the Damned, dude, this is just a classic commander card. Late game, this can be a win condition. Just remember, the zombies enter the battlefield tapped, so you can't block a lethal army of whatever's coming at you with your new tokens. If you untap, though, it's a lot of power on board. No other art speaks to me the way Fevered Suspicion's art speaks to me. It bespeaks just a really fevered suspicion. It's just like a beholder just flying through the air for no reason. 6 black and a red for a sorcery. Each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among these non-land cards without paying their mana cost. It has Rebound. Oh my god, dude, this has Rebound if you cast it from your hand, but we're probably not going to do that. But even if you don't, this can get some serious permanence on board if you can copy it. Now this card, this is one of my favorite cards in Magic because it's so evil. Worst Fears, 7 and a black for a sorcery. You control target player during that player's next turn, exile Worst Fears. Worst Fears, dude, this doesn't look like my worst fear. My worst fear is running out of corned beef. If you make a copy of this with Magar and it connects, you can copy it with one of our copy effects and pretty effectively lock down the board because you can choose new targets for the copy. So you can just take everybody's turns, dude, and nobody's going to want to play. Worst Fears kind of balances itself with the exile clause, but the way it interacts with Magar means it can bang in over and over again, and scooping becomes a valid win condition. Plague Wind and its muscly older brother, In Garruk's Wake, can clear the board, and once this thing hits once, it will most likely be able to just be cast over and over and over again because people aren't going to be able to rebuild. Alright, this is the last one Ray put in there, but it's Curse of the Cabal. Look at this dude, it's just Gandalf hiding on top of this tower, dude, waiting for some eagles or something. It's 9 and a black for a sorcery. Target player sacrifices half the permanents they control, rounded down. Man, oh man, this is so nasty. I had never seen this card before, and I doubt Ray would suspend this thing, so we could ignore that text. This is the highest mana value card in the deck, and if you can get this over and over again, people are just going to have a lonely island and they'll be sad. So obviously I'm going to link the deck list. I kind of theory crafted some includes in talking with Ray about the deck. We're going back and forth on Discord. What about this card? What about this card? You have the old Lithiform Engine. 4 generic mana for a legendary artifact, has 2 in tap, copy target activated or triggered ability you control, you may choose new targets for the copy. 3 in tap, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control, you may choose new targets for the copy. So basically you're just copying stuff. This copies everything, fairly mana intensive but is also very powerful. Strionic Resonator also came up as well, which could copy the copy creature's trigger that they gain from Magar's ability. And just another really nice utility land would be Access Tunnel. Has tap, add colorless, 3 in tap, target creature with power 3 or less can't be blocked this turn, so that's going to be all your little guys. It's a free roll spell to get a key Magar creature through. And Ray built with no creatures, and I respect that. However, there's cards like Dauthi Trapper, 2 and a black for a creature, Dauthi Minion, it's a 1/1. Tap, target creature gains shadow until the end of turn, it can get one of your Magar copy creatures through. And look at that art, dude, it's rad. Alright, listen friends, this is a fun deck, it's really interesting to think around and brew. Ray's deck can be extraordinarily explosive and can win the game in a variety of ways. You can kind of pick and choose the effects you want, the big Haymakers. And there's a bunch of creatures that could be effective as well, like that old Dauthi Trapper I talked about. I kind of respect the no creatures rule, however, it makes a more interesting list. So listen, if there's a dream that you have, building a house, buying some kind of a bird, or creating something, anything, go out there and do it. Put something out in the universe, brothers. Even if you just want to brew a new deck, check out the deck list in the description and then go do it. Later, brothers. This is Nicky G from Better Commander signing off.